At this time, I'd like to call the Wilmington Board of Selectmen meeting of Monday, September 26, 2016 to order. All members are present. I do apologize. It's 7:07. We are running a few minutes late. At this time, I'd kindly ask that we all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, and I'd like Selectman Bendel to lead us in this regard.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Before we get into the agenda, I'd like to once again acknowledge that all of the members of the board, as well as the town manager and Bev, are wearing an article of clothing that is orange. And as most of you know, this month is Leukemia Awareness Month, also Lymphoma Awareness, and it's also Suicide Awareness Month and Childhood Cancer Awareness. So thank you very much to the members of the board for participating, as well as our management team here at Town Hall. So moving on to the next agenda item, which is the transmitting of the Treasury warrants 12, 12A, 13, and 13A. Do I have a motion?
Move the warrants 12, 12A, 13, 13A.
Motion been made and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Unanimous. Thank you. Moving on to the approval of the minutes. If nobody objects, I'd like to take them up collectively. Does anyone have any issues with doing that?
Madam Chair, if I could, I want to make an amendment to some of the minutes on June 13, 2016, and I can submit it to the town manager. We can give it to the clerk. I'd just like to make an amendment and put an insertion in 3 different areas. If I could read it right now.
Sure, if you can just give me a little bit of insight as to what you're referencing.
Yeah, page 6. I mean, I can be very specific. I mean, I don't expect all the words to be obviously stated in here for generalization, but there's a couple of key points that's not in here that, you know, I think it warrants it should be in here. So I could read what I need to read right now. On page 6, second to the bottom paragraph, after it says, "Who lives with him?" If you take a look at it.
Page 6.
Page 6. It's the second to the bottom paragraph. It's right, the second to the bottom where it says, you know, mother-in-law who lives with him.
Yeah.
I just wanted to insert something in there, if I can read it, Madam Chair.
Go ahead.
All right, it says, who lives with him, please insert. Mr. McCoy stated, "What do you think was going to happen to the business abutter next door?" This is your signature, Mr. Loud, on the special permit that you approved only 1 parking spot at AJ's. I don't play games. I asked the town manager to get the special permit that was granted by the Board of Appeals. So I would like to put that in there. And I do have on the bottom, on page 2.
Selectman McCoy, can I interject just to ask you if you would be amenable to this? If you have proposed changes, would it be acceptable for you to offer those changes to the manager and to the clerk and have these minutes revisited as a public record for another meeting? Or do you feel strongly about having all of your aspects heard tonight?
No.
I don't want to silence your voice, but I want to be efficient in how you want to handle
Can I
it.
tell you, as long as this gets in the public record, I don't need to say it right here, but if you're willing to do that, I can just hand this to the manager, give it to the clerk, and if you want to make a motion to table these minutes, I mean, I have no problem with the other minutes until the next meeting. And then
Okay.
we can take it up there.
Would anyone like to make a motion to table these minutes, please, and we can readdress them at a later time?
I'd take a motion to table those minutes.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, seconded. Any discussion?
Well, are you tabling it to a specific time? Because if you just table something, it just dies.
No,
By
it
Robert's
doesn't. No,
rules.
Table it to the following
Table to
meeting?
the
Got to table it to the
meeting?
following meeting. That was the
Okay.
impression I had.
Sure.
You said you were going
Yep,
to table it to the
understood.
following meeting, because we've done that in the
Okay.
past, many, many times. And I can hand this to the clerk,
Sure.
and I can go with
So
Bev. and-
table it to the following
Yeah,
meeting
that's
is
fine.
considered the motion?
Yep,
Okay,
fine.
that's been seconded. Any
Okay.
further discussion?
All right, I don't have a problem with that.
All those in favor? Unanimous. Okay, moving on.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
if I could just to be clear, so is it the desire of the board that the language to be inserted into the minutes, that we perhaps italicize those or in some manner
Differentiate,
reference
please.
different, okay.
Yes, please.
Give it to Jeff right now. Okay.
So just for clarity for all members of the board, you'd receive the minutes again. There'd be some differentiator as to what's been inserted, and then we could have an open and transparent discussion at that time, but then everything is within the body of the document that you're reviewing, and you'd have the opportunity to review it in advance of coming into open session. Fair enough?
Yes, I agree.
Okay, all those in
Sounds fine
favor?
with me. Yep, absolutely.
All those in favor? Unanimous. Okay, moving on. For the minutes of July 25th, 2016, questions, comments, or a motion on these minutes?
I make a motion that we accept the July 25th meetings.
Okay, motion's been made. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Unanimous. Thank you. Okay, the first appointment, we are running a few minutes late. Once again, I do apologize. It is the Board of Selectmen recognition of the Wilmington Sons of Italy. And at this time, I'd like to turn the program over to our town manager, Jeffrey Hull.
Thank you. About probably a little over a year ago now, a former selectman, Lou Semeglia, approached me about the prospect of having a welcome to Wilmington sign at a prominent location in town. He in turn had been, as I understand it, approached by a resident, possibly more than one resident, about this idea. Certainly many communities in the area have similar types of signs. So I talked with Mike Woods, the Public Works Director. We took a look at different options, one being at an entrance to Wilmington, but there are multiple entrances to the town, and so that really didn't seem to be particularly feasible. And then taking a look at the Common, which is, I think for many people, the heart of Wilmington, it seemed appropriate to look at the Common as the appropriate location. And the next issue became looking for a sponsor to assist with funding that type of endeavor. So I had spoken with Selectman Kyra, this goes back several months ago now, about whether the Sons of Italy might be interested in making a donation towards the sign. He indicated that he would bring it forward to his board of directors. And his group was gracious enough to agree to the investment in the sign. It was about $6,400 as a cost for the sign. It was done by a sign maker out of Tewksbury. And Public Works actually did the installation of the granite posts. But we just want to offer thanks to members of the Sons of Italy for this generous donation, because it is, in my opinion, a very nice-looking sign, and it does what it's intended to do, which is to let people know you're in Wilmington.
Great, thank you. So I do see that we have several members of the Sons of Italy here. I'm going to turn it over to the members of the board to make comments. I do see that we have former Selectman Lou Semaglia here in the audience tonight, so thank you, Lou, once again for bringing this forward. Also, I did receive a phone call from former Selectman Michael Newhouse, who also was invited to attend tonight. Due to family obligations, he unfortunately was not able to attend, and wanted to thank the manager and this board for the invitation. So I will have some closing comments and a certificate to present and some remarks for the Wilmington Sons of Italy, but I'd like to turn it over to my fellow board members, if I may, at this time, to offer any remarks as well. So I will start to my right.
Thank you. Thank you very much to the members of Sons of Italy. I appreciate this generous donation, and I appreciate all the things you've done for the town over the years. And this is just another great addition that you've added to our town, and I think it looks awesome. Drive by it almost every day now, and it's a very nice addition to the Common. So thank you very much for your efforts and your generosity.
Yeah, I want to thank the Sons of Italy as well, as a longtime member. Sons of Italy has done a lot for this community, and the community has done a lot for the Sons of Italy. So we work hand in hand. And I want to congratulate all the members for their generosity, for giving of themselves and their the money that they have to the town for various things over the years, like playgrounds and safety officers' cars and police chief cars, and the support that they give to the town is just outstanding that they've done. And I know that there is a fundraiser that they're having October 22nd. I don't know if someone will mention that, but I'll throw it out. It's for the earthquake victims in Italy. So if anybody's interested in going to that, it's just a $10 evening, October 22nd, that the Sons of Italy is trying to raise some significant monies for the victims in the region of Lazio, Italy. Also, the Sons of Italy is having their 50th anniversary coming up. 50 years that we've been in town, that we've been able to support various things such as the school department, the athletic department, and buying uniforms for them for a lot of the sports programs that they have. So we'll be celebrating 50 years, March 25th, 2017. So write that down on your calendar book. Hopefully you'll be able to attend. I see, Lou, you're putting that in there now, so, yeah. Got it.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair. Anytime there seems a cause, always the Sons of Italy come up to bat, and they always hit a home run every single time, and there's a lot of great volunteers. And I got to say, Kevin, you do a fantastic job. Your family's always there, and there's a lot of good volunteers. I just got to ask a question. During 4th of July, you guys usually do a dinner. Did you do a dinner last year?
Unfortunately, we didn't do a dinner, but we had a
usually
great booth.
But I want to ask you, usually when you do a dinner, what kind of food do you serve?
Well, when we
Come
first
on.
started, Scott,
Come on.
35 years ago, it was pasta, but now we changed to Chinese food. Yeah, so.
I have to make that, I'm saying to say, even though I'm half Italian, half Irish, yeah, I'd be happy to make some spaghetti and meatballs with you guys next time, all right? Thanks. But you guys do a fantastic job. Thank you,
Yeah,
Madam Chair.
thank you, Mike. Repeating what my good colleagues have said, you know, you exemplify, the Sons of Italy exemplifies what is best about Wilmington. My good colleague Lou Somaglia, in many years that I served with him, would often say that Wilmington is defined by its volunteerism. And there are multitudes of organizations and individuals who belong to multiple organizations where they volunteer their time, you volunteer your time, you generate revenue and funds to support all the worthy endeavors that Mr. Kyra just mentioned. And the sign that's on the town common now that welcomes visitors into the town is, again, a testament to the hard work and the generosity that the Sons of Italy do, and it represents all that you are in the community. So thank you for that, and thank you for your ongoing and continued support of our community.
Thank you. And before I make additional comments, I'd like to acknowledge Mr. DeStefano, who's here this evening representing the Sons of Italy, and I'd like to provide this opportunity if you'd like to make any comments on behalf of the Wilmington Sons of Italy. Okay. And John Raimondo, and
This is our Vice President, John Romano, our past president, Jerry Puber, and Betty April is a member of our trust. Basically, Kevin's kind of repeated what we've done, but right from the start, from 1996 to the present, we've donated over $1 million to not only Wilmington, but national charities and state charities. And that's kind of our mission, is to help, help as much as we can. My chairman here for our fundraiser, would you like to speak a little bit about that?
I guess I'm the chairman now.
I passed the buck.
Just as Kevin said, October
Co-chairman.
22nd. It's going to be at the Tewksbury VFW from 6 to 10. We're going to have pizza and salad and a few other things, some nice desserts. We'll make sure there's some Italian desserts, Mike. No Chinese desserts, I promise. It should be a fun night. We're going to have a DJ, and we're just trying to raise as much money as we can, as we usually do, to help our fellow compadres in Italy in a time where I'm sure it's going to be years before they're able to get back on their feet. So if anybody's available to come, it's kind of a drop-in, drop-out event. You don't have to stay all night, but we'd love to have you. So thank you.
thank you.
And Michael, I'm spaghetti and meatballs too. You know, as soon as we can convince Father Early to redo the kitchen at Villanova Hall, that's going to be on the menu.
I'll tell you, anytime I go to an Italian restaurant, that's the first thing I order, just plain spaghetti and meatballs, and if they hit a home run with that, then the restaurant's fantastic.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So on behalf of the board, I just wanted to offer my remarks as well and just offer a sincere thank you. I know a lot of my colleagues have said a lot. There's no question the legacy that the Wilmington Sons of Italy has had for many years in the town of Wilmington. When I think of your organization as a household name, people know of you, they meet and greet you out in the community. And what I really particularly enjoy about your organization is the camaraderie and the friendship and the familyhood that you have amongst your members. And you really have stuck together and have unified for this cause that you just talked about and many others. And when I think of your organization, I think that you all look at things as, what can I do next? That Welcome to Wilmington sign is a signature item that has really made our common look fantastic. Driving by it, you can't help but notice it. And this is just one example of the many things that you've done in the past and that you've continued to do. And I know we're talking very specifically about the sign tonight, but it's already known that you're even donating to Yuntile and other future projects for the future, and that's a credit to all of you and to the organization as a whole. So at this time, I'd like to offer the certificate of appreciation on behalf of the town of Wilmington, which I would like to present to the Wilmington Sons of Italy in recognition of their generous donation to fund the Welcome to Wilmington sign at the town common, and with sincere gratitude for their continued generosity to the town of Wilmington. I offer this as the chairman of the Board of Selectmen, Judith L. O'Connell, presented on this 26th day of September 2016.
Oh. It's going to be in the post office? Work with the camera. Can I just say one most important thing is we're always seeking new members. We do meet starting next month. We're gonna be meeting at Villanova Hall on the fourth Thursday of the month. It's a very casual meeting, you know, and so we're always seeking new ideas on different fundraisers to do too. So, and you don't have to be Italian. We have social members too, you know. So, like I said, we're always looking for new members.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you once again. Yes.
Hi, Madam Chair. If I may, like Selectman Champoux said, this town is just represented so well by all the different organizations, especially the Sons of Italy, for doing that sign. And when I was on the board, I was fortunate to have an extremely active resident in town approach me with the idea for the sign. Welcome to Wilmington, not just entering Wilmington. And Audrey Reed is here tonight. She is the young lady that asked me if I could bring it up in front of the board. So I'd like to take the credit, but I can't. It's Audrey Reed's.
I'd just like to thank everybody that made it possible. It's a beautiful sign. I love it.
Great. Thank you very much. We appreciate it. Thank you again. Thank you. So, it's tough to top that. I mean, we should just adjourn right now, but we have very important things, Scott. I just checking to see if you were paying attention. So, so at this time, I'd like to call the next appointment forward, which is with Scott C. Grant, Chairman of the 4th of July Committee, regarding the request to use the town common for tree lighting ceremony on December 3rd, 2016, and the 2017 4th of July festivities. At this point, Scott, I know you're here tonight, and I apologize for just interrupting you. If it's okay with you, I'd like to kindly ask Jeff if you have any preliminary comments, or do you want Scott to present first and then you offer some comments? How do you want to proceed?
Well, I guess I would suggest that perhaps the board first consider granting the permission to use the common, take that action perhaps first, and then we can have a discussion about the plans for the 2017 July 4th festivities.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Madam
Okay,
Chairperson. There are several members of the 4th of July Committee here with me this evening. This year's tree lighting, Saturday, December the 3rd, beginning at 4 o'clock. Organized, sponsored, and underwritten by the 4th of July Committee. As in the past, we anticipate once again having horse-drawn hay rides, cookies and hot chocolate, ice sculpture, sponsored by the Wilmington Chamber of Commerce and some of its members, Wilmington Minutemen with lanterns, Wilmington High School a cappella group, volunteers from the Wilmington High School cheerleaders, Wilmington Community Fund annual Wilmington-themed pewter ornament sale, members of the Wilmington Fire Department collecting unwrapped toys and cash donations for Wilmington children, clergy from various parishes in town presenting the story of Christmas. Santa will arrive, hopefully by fire engine, promptly at 6 o'clock p.m. to light the lights on the common for the season, and will be available for pictures with children, both young and old, inside the 4th of July building thereafter. As always, we thank the board for its support and looking forward to a wonderful celebration of the holiday season again on December 3rd.
Great. Thank you. Any questions or comments or a motion to grant this request?
Move to grant the request.
Motion been made, seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to the discussion of the 2017 4th of July festivities.
So just by way of introduction to this, as you know, the series of circumstances last year that led to the town getting involved in the solicitation of proposals for a carnival, and we were very fortunate in that we received a couple of good proposals. The town was able to award a contract for those services, and the July 4th committee stepped up and was very supportive in assisting both in terms of the carnival setup and kind of monitoring conditions as they transpired over the 4 days, in addition to doing what they've done for so many years in terms of providing the various, the music and all of the different activities that Wilmington residents and people outside of Wilmington have come to expect. So after the conclusion of the July 4th, I think we took a bit of a breather, but then Scott and I communicated, I think probably maybe late August or thereabouts, about the prospect of going forward, and I think there was consensus that we wanted to try to approach this early on to, try to avoid any kind of a panic, so to speak. So there was some discussion about the prospect of whether the carnival piece would continue to be done by the town, or whether there was interest in the July 4th committee taking it over. From my perspective, I think it worked very well this year. Fortunately, give the credit certainly to the Board of Selectmen for offering this suggestion up and pursuing that route. I think going forward, it's this is something that an outside or a non-Wilmington or not the town government should be involved in terms of running and operating. So, while, on the one hand, the town received funding from the carnival vendor, one of the challenges that Scott and I talked about is the prospect that without some source of income other than what the other sources that the committee is generating, it is going to be very difficult for them to continue providing the kind of program, the caliber of program that people have come to expect. So the discussion really turned to what we would be looking to do next year. I think, from my perspective, the scale of the carnival and the whole program really should remain as it was last year. One of the challenges, and I don't have to tell anybody in the room, that we faced was the fact that this was in a different location, in an area that was surrounded, at least on multiple sides, by residential areas, and there were concerns by residents about whether this could be pulled off without negatively impacting them. I think it was, due to the credit of the committee, and also I would say our police department was certainly very active, fire, DPW. So from my perspective going forward, I think the scale of the event, the 4 days, the time that the event was held was all reasonable given the environment that it's now in. So the part of the discussion that Scott and I had was about the idea of the July 4th committee putting in an application to the Zoning Board of Appeals for authorization to have a carnival at that location. As some of you may know, there's a certain process that we have to go through. Last year, when the July 4th committee made its application, it was a different proposal than ultimately what the town put forward, and that proposal was not successful. Typically, when the Zoning Board of Appeals denies a request for a special permit, there can be a 2-year period before a proponent can reapply. In this case, and this is something to be determined, but it would be my belief that if the July 4th committee submits a proposal that was similar in nature to the town's, where it's scaled down from the original proposal, that as we were able to do with the Zoning Board of Appeals, and that is to make the case that it was not a repetitive petition, I think the July 4th committee could make the same case. So, but I think the effort needs to start early on. And I don't want to speak for the July 4th committee, certainly Scott and others can, but my expectation is that they want to have a sense of how they should proceed. So that's really what brings us here tonight, and I guess with that, I'll turn it over to Scott.
Thank you, Jeff. If I can, by way of background, and then I'd like to get into just sort of commenting on some of the discussion that you folks had at your August 15th meeting. What is commonly known as the 4th of July Committee is actually comprised, each member of the committee is actually a director of the Wilmington 4th of July Celebration, Inc., which is a Massachusetts nonprofit corporation started by the filing of Articles of Organization in 1987. And the articles specify, that the corporation is established and functions and exists for the purpose of running, funding, and organizing this celebration. The celebration, in terms of funding, is funded in part by donations from local businesses and residents, but historically is primarily funded through a portion of the proceeds generated by the carnival. Unlike the town's arrangement in 2016, our arrangement with the carnival vendors has historically been based primarily on a percentage of their sales, whereas with you folks, with the town, with the money that came into the town's general fund, it was based upon an hourly rate. And frankly, that was my recommendation to the town manager and the assistant town manager, that they explore that possibility in terms of a bid, because doing it as a percentage, we have a committee member who lives at the carnival the whole week to count tickets and make sure the numbers are accurate and make sure we're getting our numbers correct and we're getting our share correct. And I didn't want the town, I suggested that the town didn't want to have to do that this past year. As I mentioned, I had the opportunity to watch your meeting of August 15th after the fact. I would have liked to have been here that evening. I wasn't aware the discussion was going to come up. In terms of a couple of things that were raised, Mr. Kyra mentioned the raffle that we conduct, which, in addition to the carnival, does offer some source of revenue for the events that we put on each year. It was, however, characterized as a buy-in for the community groups by someone in the audience that evening, and that's not completely accurate. What happens, and what has always happened, as long as the 19 years I've been involved, is the community groups that run booths in the food booth buy from us $200 worth of raffle tickets, 100 raffle tickets, $2 a piece. They give us a check, which helps us generate funds. They then turn around and sell them to the general public to recoup their $200. So should they choose not to sell them, that's their choice. But they, with the exception of perhaps one group that I know of, everybody turns around and sells those tickets and recoups their $200. So it's not a buy-in to be able to participate. In terms of what that raises, this past year, the net on the raffle was $2,233.20. Last year, it was $1,323.10. The highest total from the raffle in the past 5 years was in 2012, and that was last year we were full bore, if you will, down at the Common. That was $3,707.10. Overall, for the celebration, for 3 of the past 4 years, we've operated at a loss. The 4th year, we had a net revenue of $854. In order to provide what we have traditionally provided as a celebration, obviously takes money. With the construction of the high school on the horizon years ago and the impact we knew it would have on the celebration, we worked hard to save money. We evaluated what we did. We made cuts where we could without sacrificing the celebration, and members of the committee fought hard on contracts to get numbers down for bands, clowns, children's entertainers, etc. And we did a good job. We had some money put away. However, 2013, we had 0 carnival revenue. 2016, we had 0 carnival revenue. 2014 and 2015, as the board knows, we were at the Shriners. We had significantly reduced carnival revenue, and that money is nearly gone. Once we get through the expenses related to the tree lighting this fall, we'll have approximately $5,000 left in the bank. This past year, we spent, on a reduced for us celebration, approximately $27,000 for fireworks, for family day events, for rentals, etc. So at our last meeting, our last board meeting, which was September 13th, we voted unanimously that we would apply to the Board of Appeals with an application similar, both in form and substance, in hours and days, size of carnival, to what the town went to the Board of Appeals with this year. And obviously, we understand the process that we would have to go through, the initial determination with the planning board, the initial determination with the Board of Appeals, then the application with the Board of Appeals. In terms of the 4th of July building, that question was raised too at your meeting on August 15th. Absolutely, it's the town's building. It has, through my understanding, my longstanding understanding, been entrusted to the committee's care. It's used by several community groups throughout the year for meetings. On dozens of occasions throughout the year, we, as committee members, are there to open the building for use for meetings, car washes, pie sales, youth sports to distribute equipment, and other events. We staff the building for the Recreation Department's summer concert series. We lend committee equipment to local organizations. This past weekend, for example, we lent tables that we have, that we purchased for use in the road race, and we lent a charcoal grill and some other equipment to one of the local parishes to use, and that's something we do willingly. We maintain and repair the building. We paid for all new carpeting a few years ago. We pay for the paper goods, for the bathrooms that are used by the community groups that meet there. And as I said, we purchase, maintain equipment in the building, including tables, chairs, and other items that those groups use. Major repairs are undertaken by the town. We understand and always have acknowledged that there is an expense to the town, both financial and in terms of personnel associated with the celebration. When we have been able to, we have donated funds to the town. On 4 occasions, we worked hard to campaign for votes for both the 4th of July donation from Liberty Mutual and for the donation that went to the 2 donations that went to the fire department. Ultimately, as with any expenditures that the Board of Selectmen approves, the decision comes down to what's best for the community. It's my belief that the community wants this celebration. If this celebration is to continue, we need the relationship with the carnival in order to fund this celebration in the manner we have for 36 years. Thank you. Be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, at this point, I'm going to turn it over to my fellow board members. I will leave it open for anyone that wants to raise their hand and make any sort of comments, questions, et cetera. Yes, Mr.
Yeah,
McCoy?
thank you, Madam Chair. You know, I've been in the community a long time, and I know it was kind of heartbreaking when some folks that serve on the 4th of July committee had to go on the town meeting floor just recently and say, hey, we don't make any money. We don't put money in our pockets. Been in the town a long time, and I know there's good folks out there that have volunteered their time for 30 years, and they got paid this. They got paid this. You know, it's a lot of volunteerism. We talked, Mr. Shampoo talked about volunteerism. Lou Samagli brought that up many a times. You know, the way I look at it, it's your baby. You should guys just run with it. You know, and the town should support you in any way because there is a big call out there for the 4th of July. I think you guys do an outstanding job. I support you to the fullest. And like, once again, it's your baby. I think you should take it and run with it. And if we can assist in any way to do it, that's what we should really do. And you guys do a great job. And, you know, there's other groups as well, the Kiwanis and the Rotary and the Sons of Italy. You know, it's endless. You know, you talk about volunteerism, and it's at its best. And once again, I'm sure you folks, and I know you were upset to get up at that town meeting. They get paid this, 0. So I'm fully in support of what the 4th of July committee would like to do. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay. Yes.
If I may. Scott, I'm going to ask you to repeat that. I think I was shuffling papers. Anticipated costs to do the full bore, what the town has sort of grown accustomed to having as a 4th of July celebration for the 4th of July committee to do it. Did you say 27,000?
No, I said we spent 27 last year.
Oh, okay. Forgive
And
me.
that was significantly reduced.
Okay.
I mean, by way of example, historically, including the fireworks, on Family Day, we spent $10,000 on Family Day. Last year, we cut out a great deal of it. Obviously, we don't have Family Day fireworks anymore. We spent $900. So let's go back to 2000. Well, the highest was 2013, which was the first year we didn't have any carnival revenue. We spent $42,000.
So somewhere between $40,000 and $50,000 is what would be expected.
Well, I mean, there are certain things, Mike, that we can't logistically do anymore because of where we are and where the carnival would be. Pony rides and petting zoo, for example, that was $1,800 to a couple $1,000. We don't do 2 nights of fireworks any longer, so that was, it was apportioned as $5,000 in our contract with the fireworks vendor. So I would say going forward, 42,000 would be a high number, but certainly to do what we'd like to do and restore some of the things, especially to Family Day that we've done in the past, 30 to 35 is what it takes us on an annual basis to put the celebration on.
So, thank you. I guess I want to say some stuff, and then I want to ask you a follow-up question to that. So, what I want to say is that the 4th of July committee, in my, 18 years, 19 years of living in this community, represents, is reflected in what we saw last spring, which is the town of Wilmington generally, with a couple of exceptions, but generally has a high expectation that the 4th of July celebration is going to be second to none, that we know how to do it, and that there's an expectation that we're going to continue to do it. When I say we, you guys, but the town of Wilmington is going to have a 4th of July celebration that is admired and respected and that other communities envy. And so, you know, as an elected official in town, I have the highest of hopes and the strongest of desires to do what I can from this seat to try to enable that to take place for the people of Wilmington, because they expect it. Frankly, I expect it. I want it as a resident as well. So I hold you and the entire committee in the highest of regards for the amount of time and energy and patience that you've endured, especially over the course of the last few years, to continue to provide that celebration and that resource to the town. Let me transition to the word resource. I personally represented 2 of the organizations that took advantage of the 4th of July committee and the 4th of July building's generosity over the weekend. I was part of the parish celebration that Scott referred to, and was part of the Chamber of Commerce road race that happened yesterday. And we availed ourselves of your generosity in the terms of grills and tables, and Joan came down on her free time to open up the building, and that's just, again, I'm sorry to say, but we kind of expect that you guys are going to be there for us to do that, and you always are. And so it's my hope and desire that you always will be. And I, frankly, have the notion, if it ain't broke, let's not go trying to fix it. So I'm hoping we can maintain the good rapport and the good relationship that we've enjoyed for decades. Getting back to money, you're down to, after Christmas, $5,000, something like that. You get a whole bunch of money to come up with. How do you foresee, if hypothetically you're successful, and it becomes the 4th of July committee's responsibility to go before the Board of Appeals and get the permit to do so? Where does that? What do you anticipate? What's the next step?
Well, this past year, we undertook I'll use the word heightened fundraising campaign, red, white, and blue campaign. So I think we're going to have to rely in part on that again. We're also intending to go out to bid to carnival vendors with a very demanding proposal.
Okay. Thank you for being here tonight, and thank you all for being here tonight.
Okay, anything here? Yes.
Madam Chair, thank you. As I've stated in the past before, I'm fully supportive of the 4th of July Committee. I appreciate all that you've done and you continue to do. And I personally, my thoughts is I don't want to get in the way of what you folks do, and that's you guys do it best, put it on. So I'm fully supportive of giving this to the 4th of July Committee. It's my belief that the town should find a way to have to fund it and support the committee in the best we can, and so that we continue to have the best celebration around. And last year, again, I was there with my family, and we enjoyed it very much, even though you guys made a lot of changes and adjustments, working with the town. I thought it was a phenomenal event. Everybody I talked to felt the same way. So, again, I'm fully supportive of the 4th of July Committee, and I would like to see whatever can be done, as Mr. McCoy said, to make sure that you guys can continue to do what you do best.
Yeah, I would agree with my fellow colleagues that I am in full support of the 4th of July Committee. It's a volunteer group that's second to none. You've done an outstanding job in organizing it, putting it all together, and finishing it off. And that goes back, I've been involved in the 4th of July for 35 years out of the 36, when Jack Cushing was there, and Jimmy Stewart, and now yourself, Scott. It's a lot of work, and it's work, and you don't get paid for it. But in regards to what happened last year, I think the selectmen need to take a real hard look at what the town is putting out and in way of tax dollars. And last year, it paid some $50,000 for the police, the fire, and the DPW. And when it had the carnival option, it recouped about $30,000 or so of that expense. So that's where the conversation became important in my mind in regards to the taxpayers. When you run an event, and I don't have to tell anybody, we probably all have run events, you put down your budget, your anticipated cost, and then you have your actuals on both. And I think if you said last year it cost you $27,000, in actuality, believe it or not, it actually cost you, or the town, $77,000. And so that's where I'm coming from. I would like to see it, the actual cost to you to run this. And I note down here that you have made contributions in the past back to the town. I wasn't on the board back then, so I don't know that you did or did not do that. You did. If it says here that Jeff wrote that you've done that, it'd be interesting to see when you did that and how much money you gave back and the circumstance that allowed you to do that. And that's all I'm saying, is that if you have a carnival that's going to raise X numbers of dollars, and you have the raffle or the sale of merchandise or whatever you have, and if you can put in all that expense and show all your income, and it shows as a negative. But some of that income could go towards paying for some of the benefits that the residents are receiving from the police, fire, and DPW, who do an outstanding job, as we all realize that. So that's where I was coming from. It wasn't anything else but that. I'm looking at what's actually being spent. I'm looking that we're putting out taxpayers' dollars and we're not recouping any of it back when, in some cases, maybe we could. So that's where I'm coming from.
I understand and I appreciate that, and as you have, I've served in other organizations in town, and there are certainly other organizations in town that use town facilities and benefit from taxpayer dollars. I don't have any objection to, when we're able to, turning around as we have in the past and making a donation back to the town to help cover some costs. Again, Mr. Kyer, to me, this comes down to whether the community wants this celebration to continue. And if we're given the opportunity to recoup the relationship with the carnival, rebuild our coffers, if you will, and can then turn around and make a donation to the town as we have in the past, I'm sure we will. I'll advocate that we do. However, I can't sit here tonight and say, we're gonna turn around and give X percentage back to the town. I just don't know in a given year, and this year we could make X number of dollars, and next year it pours for 4 days, and we make nothing.
And I've been at a few events where it poured, and I've had to hold the tent down. But transparency is where it comes from then. I mean, for a report that's given out, maybe to the town manager, as to what happens in the carnival as for your income and expenses. I don't think it needs to be publicized, but at least if the town, since it's a town volunteer organization, and we're a team, I mean, we're all working on, for one cause here. We're not going against each other or anything. It's one issue that it's a great event. It's for the community. We need to have it. We should have it. But if we're spending taxpayers' dollars, and last year we saw that we were able to recoup 31,000 of it, and we still had a fantastic celebration, why can't it be done again? But that will come down to the transparency of the income and expenses. And that's where I think there's that missing element.
I guess I'll be frank with you and say I take offense at the word transparency because I infer from it that there's been any lack thereof.
No.
Anytime someone in this building has a question, they know where to find me. Those questions have always been answered. Anytime you, Mr. Kyer, have a question, you have my email address, my phone number's available. We have a CPA who's on our committee, who has kept our books for years. Any information that's needed, we're obligated to reveal as a Massachusetts nonprofit corporation.
Well, I'm sorry if you took offense to that, but it is a fact that at one of the selectmen's meetings that I watched, a prior board, when you were asked the question, how much money is in your account, and you told them how much, and that individual said, oh, now we finally know what is in that account, as if it was never an issue of public record, not that it need be, but it should be. Since you are a 501c3, is that what you are? Or you're not?
No.
Okay.
No. And when the person said that, the question had never been previously posed to me.
Okay.
So for them to say, now we finally know, like we were keeping some grand secret, was not the case.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that you were keeping a secret or not, I'm just saying that I think if.
For years, for years and years, we ran with a, Dave, correct me if I'm wrong, $8,000 carryover in our account. And as I said, years ago, 8, 9 years ago, we started working very hard to save money, put money away, reduce our costs, and we ended up going into 2013, the year we didn't have any carnival, with $63,000 in the bank. as I said, after the tree lighting, December 4th, that will be down to $5,000. We've had, of the past 4 years, 2 years with no carnival revenue, 1 year of 19,000 and 1 year of 15,000.
So you had $63,000 in the bank, but you weren't at that time anticipating that there'd be no carnival. I
Correct.
mean, no one could have anticipated that.
Correct,
So
but- well, we were-
would you not think that having $63,000 in your account, that maybe the town could be donated 20,000 of it towards the expense of its fire, police, and DPW?
Absolutely,
Okay.
potentially. However, as I said earlier, we were coming into the construction of the high school. We didn't know what was going to happen and what sort of revenue we would have and what sort of, if any, and what sort of celebration we could put on without a carnival. And we saw in 2013 a celebration where frankly a handful, literally a handful of people came. And we spent $42,000. So had we turned around and donated, to your number, $20,000 of the 63 to the town, 2013 would have been the last year we were able to fund the celebration. No fireworks since then.
The town has also been generous in its contribution of, every once in a while, they put in an article in. I think last year you put $25,000 for an article. So the town has also stepped up in addition to the expense it incurs for the fire, police, and DPW. It also puts in a line item each year, whether you accept it or not, it's, you know.
Just to be clear, so it's my recollection that the 25,000 from this, that was approved at the town meeting, the most recent town meeting, was the first time, at least for some period of time that I recall, that the town actually earmarked funds for the carnival. Historically, what has been done is that the departments that you mentioned, police, fire, DPW, and prior to that, public buildings, because there used to be access to the high school facilities which required custodians, there was money budgeted in those salary accounts, anticipating that there would be some measure of overtime associated with the carnival. So, and I think that's probably why in past years there wasn't a specific amount earmarked for at a town meeting. If you recall, at the time when the budget was being prepared, it was really up in the air as to what was going to happen with the event, and it was my recommendation at the time that we have money set aside so that we could, in some manner, keep the event going.
May I?
Yes.
I'm gonna try to, I don't know, I hope I don't go off in a spiral here. When the 4th of July committee runs the event, the full event, carnival, fireworks, and everything, at the end of the event, if things have gone well and they had sun and the operation, hours of operation went well and they got lots of people to buy tickets, there's money that the carnival operator, in the past, depending on the negotiations, there's money that the carnival operator gives to the 4th of July committee. That money goes into the account that then gets used for Christmas and funding, I imagine, don't let me say things wrong if I do, that funding of fireworks and stuff for the next subsequent 4th of July celebration, which becomes this rolling account. Hopefully that next one is also good. You raise more money, pay for the next Christmas, and pay for the next fireworks, and keep on going year after year to try to keep that fund going, right? And hopefully you never get it down into a negative situation.
And there were many, many years where, prior to, say, 2010, where the carnival vendor, in that case Fiesta, would hand us a check. We would turn around and give Tony Gentile a check for the fireworks and say, wait 3 days.
Okay, so what I was going to build to, and this is the spiral that I'm going to have, is with what happened this last year, when the town of Wilmington had to hire the carnival operator, the town of Wilmington received the funds from the operator. So those funds went into the general fund, and are no longer available to the 4th of July committee to pay for fireworks. So the question now comes up, if we want to have the 4th of July celebration like we've all discussed and we all want to have in 2017, which includes fireworks and a carnival, then the money that would typically have been available to pay for said fireworks and carnival is in the town's general fund. So all those years prior, before the town, whatever, when it was running fully by the 4th of July committee, the town still conveyed those support services in the form of DPW, police, fire, et cetera. So I think, as Jeff may have just said, it was accounted for and budgeted by the respective chiefs and budgeting professionals. There was an anticipated, there was knowledge and awareness of July is going to be a peak in our costs, so we have to account for that. So in the budgetary process, each year, it was made known, and folks kind of went in with their eyes wide open that that's just the cost of doing business in the town of Wilmington. I think, at least that's the way I've always viewed it. This last year kind of flipped things, that broke the chain. And what I said a moment ago when I was talking about, generally my support of the 4th of July committee, I reiterate, I think it's best when it operated the way it used to operate. And somehow we've got to get you, hopefully through fundraising or whatever it is you do this year, to get back into that cycle so that you can start to raise your own funds each year after year and continue to buy us the fireworks and buy us the carnival, and allow the town. This past year, admittedly, it was a new site, and I think perhaps there was an increased presence of police. I'm not suggesting we would decrease police presence, but now it's not now it's known what that site presents, and I think the chief probably could adapt a little bit. So the budget process going into 2017 and beyond would be more of a known as compared to 2016, which is a bit of an unknown. So I did go in a spiral, but basically I think it's best if we can get the whole process back to what it used to be, so that the rolling funds continue to populate into your account. You then use it for the next subsequent set of events, and it just keeps on going. Unless I'm wrong in how that used to be, I think that's what you've kind of hoped that you will get to. Is that, am I right?
You're exactly right.
And I would support that.
So I have not had an opportunity to speak. I know I've talked with Jeff. We talked as a board. I've talked with you, Scott. Just dating back to the August meeting, obviously, this, I can't speak for the whole board, but I would think it would be pretty readily apparent that the Board of Selectmen's original intent was to not be part of this carnival celebration. It was through various events, which we all are aware of, and I don't need to be redundant as to how it came before us. And certainly, I don't take credit for having the ingenuity to come up with the idea, but in any event, it did work, and we were able to do it. And gratefully, you and your committee were on board with supporting the town, and we certainly, appreciate that. I just want to be clear, when we had the discussion in August, it wasn't the intent to leave you out. It wasn't the intent to, in any way, shape, or form, be in any way disrespectful towards the 4th of July committee. I would say during that meeting, I certainly went above and beyond to express my sincere gratitude to the 4th of July, and just to commend all of you in the room and those that are not here tonight on the work that you have done. With that data that came out and that financial analysis, not to make it about me or about this board, but just to be giving you kind of the straight talk, if you will, is that as an elected member of this board, it lended to the fact that we needed to do our job by looking at this, not just reading the financials and kind of putting it in the stack without having some dialogue and discussion, asking some effective questions in terms of what makes sense moving forward. And that should not be viewed as myself as a member or any other member trying to take this away from the 4th of July, but more to say, okay, we're going to be going into our budgetary season. If the 4th of July is going to own this moving forward, what do we need to do in terms of warrant articles for potentially funding appropriations to support you depending on where your finances are. This would be more prudent for the town manager to have this information now. It would make sense, in my opinion, to have a conversation of what went well, what didn't go well, from a staffing perspective? Did you have the footprint that you needed? Did you have the emergency personnel? I think all of these effective questions and meetings and conversations should be happening now so that we're not in a reactive mode, if you will. So that was the spirit and intention of that night from my perspective. In addition, I also wanted some legal clarity, quite frankly, to make sure that you and your team would be eligible. And I needed some legal help in terms of asking Jeff that, what did you need to do, if anything, to your application going to the Board of Appeals such that you wouldn't be subject to the 2-year restriction? So that sounds like that has, since our last August meeting, when we were at that meeting, we didn't have that clarity during that meeting. So I'm prepared to be supportive, as I've told you, in terms of this returning back to you. This is something that you guys have created. I take no credit for it. I've enjoyed it with nonprofits. I've enjoyed it with my family. You deserve a tremendous amount of credit. You sacrifice your time away from your family, your work, your jobs. There aren't enough words to describe just what you have done as a committee for the town of Wilmington. And I just want to make sure that you understand that this is, in my perspective, us trying to be a board that's looking out for the town and for the taxpayers and for the finances of the town, and it really isn't meant to be anything personal. Having said that, I think that this whole set of financials, in my opinion, I found to be very revealing, and I don't want to speak for you and your committee, but it was the first time that I was able to really see empirically what Fiesta was willing to do to be a contributing factor. And the numbers were higher than what I had expected. I'm not going to spot you with asking you what you've previously negotiated, but I believe in the end I need to have some faith, not that I didn't have faith before, but a renewed faith in your committee to take this information that we all gleaned from last year and, quite frankly, use it to our advantage, whether it's you negotiating the contract or the town negotiating the contract, that you continue as you have been with your committee to, for me to have faith that you and your committee will make a commitment in earnest to get the best deals that we can with all of the different vendors. And so I'm going off of your proven track record and your commitment to the town, that entrusting this with you, it's being placed in good hands, and that you will continue as you have for the many years that you've been a part of it, and your team, to see that we get what's best for the town, for its residents, and for our tax dollars. So that would be my commitment to you, is that I would support it with the understanding that we would have this mutual sharing in terms of best practices, finances, what you need, where we stand, so that we can cost share with this together and work together as a team. Would that be fair to say in your estimation?
It's fair to say. It's always been a reciprocal relationship. The community, at least for 36 years, is relying on us to put this celebration on. The community and the committee are dependent upon the town to underwrite it from the standpoint of police, fire, DPW, public buildings, etc. In order to satiate our desire to keep doing this, we already do that, Judy. We already have best practices to try to maximize the contracts we can get. I assure you, Fiesta gave you a very, very generous overbid last year to keep any of the carnivals out of Wilmington. So, and our relationship, our arrangement with Fiesta is different, has always been different from a money standpoint, from what the town, as I explained earlier, from what the town had this past year. And they give us a percentage of the carnival ride sales. They give us $150 for each joint, if you will, which is the food booths and the games. And they also give us a contribution historically for fireworks of $2,500 and a $2,000 donation for the buses that we pay for. So from year to year, it varies. As I said, it's been as low as $15,000 2 years ago when we were at the Shriners, and Tropical Storm Arthur came through. So I don't have any concerns whatsoever with presenting information to Jeff, whether it's financial or otherwise. last spring, when the appropriation was suggested and became a warrant article, I expressed a concern to Jeff that a municipality, I called the next morning after your meeting. I said, Jeff, could you please check with town council to see if a municipality can make a donation to a nonprofit corporation? And I believe ultimately the answer was no, you can't. So, yes, one hand has to wash the other for this to work. But my understanding is you can't direct fund us. So we need the carnival, we need the other resources to be able to do what we do and what we want to do.
Makes sense. Anything else? So in terms of getting a consensus from the board, would you be looking for just a pulse check? Are you looking for some sort of a vote of any kind of support for this initiative for the 4th of July? How do you envision us closing out this conversation?
Well, I would, I don't know that there's a vote per se that needs to be taken, but I think it would be certainly helpful to get a read from the board as to whether there's any issues or concerns with the approach that has been outlined.
Okay.
Because I think the plan that Scott and I have talked about, if there's a consensus amongst the board that the approach of returning the responsibilities of the carnival to the July 4th committee, they would be looking to get on the docket fairly soon. As Scott outlined, there's a process that they need to go through the planning board and then the zoning board of appeals to first make a determination whether this is I'm drawing a blank on the term, but yeah, whether the board of appeals can hear the case. They would have to go through the same process that we went through last year. So in order to, from a timeline standpoint, I think it's advantageous to get the approvals before the end of the calendar year.
Okay.
Madam Chair,
Yeah.
and maybe it's unnecessarily, I don't know, too much. I'd love for there to be a vote. I think that the community, the people of the town of Wilmington probably would like to see either a unanimous vote or, I don't know, unless there's a strong objection from any of my colleagues to that, I would like to submit a motion and have it seconded and take a vote. Again, but if there's objection to that, I'm certainly willing to hear it.
I'm speaking in terms of, position of each board member in terms of support. We're not actually, just for clarity, not voting on the carnival, which I'm not,
Right.
which I know you're
Agreed.
not suggesting, but, yes. Yes.
I would agree with Mr. Champlin, what he said about the budgeting process with the police department and everything. I absolutely agree with the comments that have been made up there. That's your job, to look out for our taxpayer dollars. This has been going on for 35 years, as the road race yesterday had a lot of extra details, as any other event that is run in town, and that is budgeted, sometimes not easy by the police and fire, DPW, and they put that in their annual budget, so they have an idea when it's gonna happen. It's been doing that, it's been doing that for forever. Also, like I said, I agree with Mr. Champool, I lost my train of thought. I'm sorry, but yeah, it is budgeted every year, and I know when I was on the board for 9 years, a couple of times, when we did have a couple extra dollars, I would make a motion in the meeting to make a donation to the town to help offset a little bit of the cost. And memory serves me, I did at least 2 or 3 years, and we made a motion, I forget what it was, $5,000, something like that. So, I mean, we've done it, and I know the police and fire do budget it, every year. Like I said yesterday, how many details were out there yesterday for overtime, with the road race?
No, I think you bring up a good point, and I think, anytime you make a public comment, whether you're sitting here and you're in the public, you always run the risk of offending someone. So, you just look at the newspaper and see that I've been really good at that lately. So, the point I'm making is that no one wants to say that this organization or this sports team has use of these fields and these concession shacks and these road races and these types of events, and we have major, flagship events that take place down at the high school, and there's details and there's custodians, and, why all of a sudden is the 4th of July getting that extra light? Not that you're saying that, I'm talking just in general, that from our standpoint, all the requests come through us and all the budgets kind of roll up to one big number, so, we're looking at whether it's block parties, events, resources left and right, here and there. Eventually, it's all gonna drill up to operating costs that we're gonna have to figure out when it comes to tax time, which just as well as I do, that this is all rolling up to a bigger number. And so at the end of the year, when our tax rates go up and everyone looks at new schools, all the events, different things, we're responsible to a bigger set of responsibilities. So for me personally, I'm taking a hard look at anything and everything that comes across, whether it's Relay for Life, if it's youth soccer,
And we appreciate you doing
if
that,
it's
as all
football.
yous up there, because that's what
Right.
you're supposed to be
Right.
doing.
So I get what you're saying, where it's been happening for 35 years, and there's a lot of other major events that are utilizing the same resources as well, and they're also using tax dollars for their details. And so I just want to acknowledge what you're saying, and that's not lost on me, and that your comment is well placed, that, these are things that are important to the community. That's what makes Wilmington what it is. And if we just cease on everything, what are we left with for a community of engagement and for people and families to do things? So I do get that. I just want to, is that what you're saying? Is that,
Yeah,
in
yeah,
essence,
it's
I
a
mean,
part of the bigger picture, and that's your job up there, is to, take care of our tax dollars and everything. And it's part of the bang for the buck, like Selectman McCoy always says, it is what it is. And we have in the past, and I know for a fact, because I've made the motion at a 4th of July committee meeting, that, hey, we have a couple extra bucks, we should donate something back to the town. And we have, and like Scott said, it's been going for 35 years, 36 years, and it's a lot of work, as a lot of everybody up there is on some other committee doing something else, but
right.
yeah, we're pretty passionate about it. We would like to keep it and move forward.
I can just follow that up briefly. In addition to donating money back to the town, we've donated to other organizations in town. We donated to the effort for the veterans area at the cemetery.
There's no question that there's been a tremendous amount of goodwill
Yeah,
that
just
you.
Lou,
you know-
sorry, Lou speaking reminded me of those.
Yes, no, there's no question. Just want to, just for clarity purposes, just for myself and for, a Selectman Carr or anyone else that's looking at the numbers, the intent isn't to hurt any one organization or to say that you're doing something wrong compared to another organization. It's just, we're looking at these individual components and how they drill up to a bigger number, and ultimately, we feel responsible to ask those questions. And it's I feel, I can't speak for Kevin or any other selectman, I feel it's part of my responsibility.
I would agree with Chairman O'Connell, and nothing was to be made to be offensive or negative. I just want you to understand that. It's, as Lou said, it's our job to do certain things and ask questions on issues, and that's what we're here for. So I hope you are mindful of that as well. But I am satisfied with what you've said and how you're going to approach it with the town and with the town manager. And when there are funds available to make contributions, you should consider that.
Thank you.
So to help bring some closure, I know that you're looking for a motion for a vote of support. I don't know if you want to formalize that, or if we want to just go right down the line. I would say that I would be in 100% support of having this remain with the 4th of July committee.
I'm also in support of that.
I'd be in support of that.
I'd be in support. Real quick, you talk about doing fundraising and raising money, Lou. I tell you, you can make a lot of money. You have a couple of dunk tanks next summer. I'm in one, Judy's in the other. We'll make a lot of money, and I'm willing to do it. All right, so.
Well, for the record,
Yeah.
Judy has experience. She was there.
You just have to pay to hit each other.
Yeah.
Scott, I will not be part of the dunk tank, just so you know.
Absolutely, Madam Chair, yes.
Yeah, of course, I support it as well, and that's ipso facto, that just was effectively the vote that I was looking for, so thank you very much.
Thank you, folks.
Thank you.
Go get them.
Time to get to work, guys.
Good night.
Good night, thank you.
Stick around, Lou.
Okay, communications.
The first item under communications is a memo that, from me to the board, really outlines a lot of what was just talked about, referencing the fact that the committee is looking to pursue the carnival through a request for a special permit from the Board of Appeals. It appears that based upon the circumstances, if they present a proposal that is similar to the town's, that again, they would have to go through the process, but it would not prohibit them from going forward. Next, under this is a memorandum from the Public Buildings Superintendent, and this outlines the program that we've been involved in now for a couple of months. There was a grant from the State Department of Environmental Protection that Mr. Hooper and others were responsible for putting together to assist in the testing and analysis of water in the schools. You'll recall we did that initially on our own. This is, in some measure, just a attempt to proof what was previously done, and also to get into the DEP's program right from the get-go. So there's an expectation from DEP that municipalities test their the water faucets and fixtures in their schools on a 3 to 5 year timeline. We had all of our schools tested, and with the exception of 4 different faucets, everything passed in terms of the lead and copper. The faucets that were identified as having slightly elevated readings have been replaced by public buildings. So, as I say, this is a process that we expect to continue on a 3-year basis. Next, we have correspondence from the Alcohol Beverage Control Commission. This is with regard to e-licensing. There's a memo to the board that highlights some of the information that Beverly Dalton, the administrative assistant, has been gathering. She's attended a couple of seminars that the ABCC has put on, and is really the point person here in terms of being in the know, so to speak, on what the ABCC is in the process of. Right now, there are 8 communities that are piloting this so-called e-licensing: Boston, Cambridge, Chelmsford, Dedham, Lawrence, New Bedford, Salem, and Somerville. The expectation is that the other communities, it will roll out by March of 2017, and the underlying intent really is to make the process smoother, both from the standpoint of the applicant and also from the local licensing authority. So much of the paperwork that's generated currently and sent back and forth, the intent of that is to do that via electronic correspondence. One of the more important points to come out of this is that when the board considers future licenses, the board will need to approve a designee to act on its behalf in terms of providing those filings to the ABCC. And it's my recommendation, and this will come up under board to consider later, but it's my recommendation that the board designate Beverly Dalton as that person, since she is the one responsible for the licensing, administrative process of the licensing. Next, we have correspondence from also just more of an FYI of sorts from the ABCC. Apparently, some communities have been questioning, the licensing authorities have submitted questions to the ABCC about so-called, well, ice cream, some kind of ice cream mix that contains alcohol, and whether that's something that establishments in their communities are barred from having. This bulletin is intended to serve as an FYI. It indicates that with very limited exceptions, ice cream containing alcohol is prohibited per Chapter 138, which is the general law that governs the operation of alcohol establishments. So it's not something that I'm aware of that we've seen, but I know we have the police department with some regularity that goes into establishments to check for various issues.
I'm sorry, may I, Madam Chair? I have to chime in here. I wasn't even aware such a thing existed. Alcohol-infused ice cream. So is alcohol-infused ice cream as a category are we being told that that is an illegal substance? Or is it that if we have granted an alcohol license to, say, a restaurant, could they put alcohol-infused ice cream on their menu as long as they already have an alcoholic
No.
Permit? No?
So the answer is that the licensees, those that the board has granted licenses to, are not eligible to serve this type of, I'm not sure whether it's, I guess, a food or drink, but essentially this
Non-beverage.
concoction, under the current licensing, there's very limited exception, and it talks about it in this advisory. There's apparently, the only exception to this prohibition is where the Alcohol and Tobacco Tax and Trade Bureau has classified in writing that a particular product is a non-beverage product. Please be aware that the TTB classification is specific to each individual product, a business manufacturer, and not a business's entire line of products. So it, unless the establishment has documentation from the Alcohol, Tobacco, and Trade Bureau establishing that they can have this particular item, it is not allowable.
Thank you.
Next under correspondence is information from the Reading Municipal Light. They're making people aware of their Public Power Week, which runs from October 3rd through the 7th. They, along with utilities across the country, are promoting the importance of their utilities and what they offer. October 6th, Reading Municipal Light is holding an open house from 2 to 5 p.m. at their headquarters on 218 Ash Street in Reading. And the document that they sent us outlines a variety of other activities that will be going on during that span.
Okay, moving into board to consider items.
Under board to consider, the first item, as I previously mentioned, is that the board authorize Beverly Dalton to serve as the individual designated to submit documentation to the ABCC on their behalf with respect to alcohol licensing, either license renewals or initial licenses.
Okay, questions, comments, or a motion to authorize Beverly Dalton as the individual designated to submit documentation to the Alcohol Beverages Control Commission?
Make a motion as described by the chairman.
Motion's been made. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Unanimous. Thank you.
Next is a board to consider the request of Gigi Sanlujan that the town common be illuminated pink during the month of October in observance of breast cancer awareness. This, as you may recall, was done last year, and Ms. Sanlujan was generous enough to make a donation to cover the cost of the gel that is used to alter the shading on the lights at the town common. She has done the same again this year. Unfortunately, as I'm told by DPW and public buildings, the particular gel, because it decomposes over the course of the month, it's not able to be reused from year to year. But she has committed to paying for that, which is approximately $115 or thereabouts. So based upon that, I would recommend the board act favorably.
Questions, comments, or a motion to grant permission for this request?
I would move to accept the donation of the gels from Ms. Shenlugian and light the common pink. Second.
Motion been made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Thank you. Jeff, just as a point of clarification, or just recommendation, rather, with items like this, I mean, can we send out a thank you letter from the board, just thanking them for the donation? For this one, there was an anonymous donation last month, but I'm just thinking, we're getting a lot of generosity that we're receiving from people, and I think it would be appropriate to submit a letter back.
Yes,
you.
that is, we've done that
Okay.
with the past one, and we will do that with this
Okay.
one.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to the request from Sharon George.
So we have a request from the town clerk for additional election workers to be appointed. As you know, we have the November election coming up. So the town clerk writes as follows: I'm recommending 6 new election workers. The November 8th election will be an extremely busy day. The individuals she's recommending are Janine Goudreau, Elaine Calvo, Annette Shelley, Alice Rourke, John Coronis, and Nancy Keenan. So these are the 6 individuals that she is asking the board to authorize to serve as election workers.
Okay, questions, comments, or a motion to grant this request?
I'll move to grant the request for the 6 new election workers.
Okay, motion's been made. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Unanimous. Thank you. Public comments? Hearing none. New business and committee reports, and I'll start with Mr. Bendel.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Over the last 2 weeks, I've been contacted by several residents, and I feel obligated tonight to speak out about this particular issue. Although I understand that the Board of Selectmen has no jurisdiction over school personnel issues, I, as a resident, am entitled to my opinion. In light of recent events, I'd like to say publicly that I am disappointed by how the school superintendent handled recent events. I'm disappointed that the school superintendent did not communicate with the town manager, the police chief, or any other town administrator before communicating with the entire community about such a serious issue. And I am very concerned about the message that her decision sends to our children and all the residents of the town about how town officials in Wilmington feel about domestic violence. Let me be clear, I am in no position to comment on the details of the event that started this, and every person is entitled to their day in court. My issue is with how things were handled by the superintendent after the alleged events.
Okay. Think further. Anything? Good. Anything over here?
I guess I totally agree with you, Mr. Bendel, to be totally honest with you. But I would like to talk about something just real quick if we can. At the last Facility Master Plans Committee meeting, I just sat there and I just wanted to understand what was going on. 2 things were really discussed more than anything, and I think we can agree. Number one, there was talk about senior housing, and the other talk was a town hall/school administration bill, and I think we all can agree that was the failing. And I don't know if there's a misconception out there of what is senior housing. I know we have the overlay, over 55. I'm over 55, and I can buy one of those. But I remember a year ago, Mark Marchese, we've agreed and disagreed, but I thought he put a good amendment on the floor, and there was those that spoke out against that, talking about senior housing. I was under the impression of that, and I did support and get on the town meeting floor that we try to do something affordable. And maybe there's a misunderstanding on all parts. And I understand some individuals stated that we should not be in the senior housing business, the town of Wilmington. I know we don't have an issue if we want to build a soccer field or if we want to do something of that magnitude, and we always try to do what's good for the community. So I called the executive director of the Housing Authority. I go, could you please help me with a definition here? I talked about really true affordable housing. She says, what you really want to talk about, and I'm not saying I'm making a motion, I'd just like to do a little discussion, if I could, Madam Chair. Really, public housing, low income. And you don't get any more lower income than Social Security. And I know Demingway provides a great service. And I'm not saying that we run to the state, but I just bring that out. And I know there's so many ideas at a table, and if we could look in a crystal ball and predict the future, we'd be ahead of the game. And I know everyone would like to do this and do that. I just raise it for discussion. And, I don't know, the town becomes a nonprofit, we have the property, maybe what we do, I did talk to the executive director, and I said, would you have a problem if I was to talk to the board and mention that if you could help guide us in a way and just tell us what's out there? And she said, you should really take a look at it. She's more than happy to come to the Board of Selectmen to discuss this. And if the town would be willing to do something, that maybe we contact our state delegation, and maybe there's something out there. But the key is, it would be important to me, and I think anybody would be, is, the town becomes a nonprofit, and we're self-contained. Wilmington residents gets first choice. And I know we're talking about it. And it's not like throwing a curveball, because I'm not, because we're discussing it right now. Senior housing came up. And for example, you've got some, parents that own a house that live with their children, and maybe if they gave their children the house at a reduced rate, and if we had some type of public housing, maybe there'd be like a one-time entrance fee. Like when you go to a nursing home, sometimes you gotta pay X amount of dollars to get into a nursing home. I'm not saying I have all the answers. I'm just looking for a little bit of discussion on this, that maybe we could take a look at this. And maybe it is within our means to do something. Maybe at the Whitfield site, maybe not. Maybe somewhere else. But, I really believe, and then you charge a monthly fee for this. And I think the town can make money on this, and obviously, I don't have all the answers. I'm just talking to the board, Madam Chair. I know we talked about discussions a moment ago. I supported the gentleman down there, and he's completely right on that. I just put that out there. That's all. Not looking to make a motion. If we could maybe, through you, Madam Chair, maybe we could have the executive director here, maybe at the next meeting, to enlighten us a little bit about this. I just bring this up for discussion. That's all, to try to get the conversation going, because.
So in that avenue, if I could kindly ask, would you be willing to provide the contact information to the manager to reach out and get some more information that could be shared and, beyond?
Yeah.
I'm open to looking at, me personally, I'm open to look at whatever you're discussing. I just have the preliminary comments that you're making.
I could reach out to
certainly,
the town manager, be very specific. If we could maybe just bring in the executive director, she'd be happy to talk to the board, happy to enlighten us on what's out there, what we can do, and if there's programs out there. And I understand, it would take at least 3 members of this board really to put something together to support something. I really think that we could probably do something, $4 or $5 million. I'm not saying we pull a rabbit out of a hat, but if we could take a look at something and really, truly talk about affordable senior housing. And I got the definition wrong. She's saying it's public housing / low income. I'll tell you, you don't get lower than Social Security as far as low income comes. And there are a lot of people on a fixed income, and those folks at Deming Way, they do a great job, and they live in there, they pay, I don't know, 2, 3, I don't know how much they pay per month, but it's a portion of their monthly pay that they get from Social Security. I think that would be a good thing for us to try to at least take a look at it, get the discussion going, and if there's something we can do. I'm not trying to throw a curveball and say, I would like to make a motion, you didn't vote for it. No. I'd like to get a little discussion going, and maybe this feeling that maybe this is not the right thing to do. I don't know. I just want to get the discussion going, Madam Chair. If I could talk to the manager, and maybe through you, we could, I'll talk with the manager. How about we do that?
Madam Chair, if I could just note, I can certainly have the conversation with Selectman McCoy and contact Maureen Hickey at the Housing Authority. And, to the extent that she has information she can provide to the board. My understanding is that housing authorities, for the most part, it's very difficult in this environment fiscally to, have additional financial resources directed towards them. I'm at this point, based upon what I know about housing, I have some real concerns about the town getting involved in being a landlord, if you will. I think, again, and certainly we can hear from the executive director of the Housing Authority, but that involves a whole number of additional obligations and commitments that the town would need to consider. But certainly I'm more than willing to talk to Selectman McCoy about this and to make arrangements to have, to invite Ms. Hickey to the next meeting.
Okay, fair enough.
All right, thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you. Yeah, just one quick thing. Yesterday was the 25th of September. I don't know where I'm looking. And it was the Chamber of Commerce, as you know. It was mentioned earlier tonight. The Chamber of Commerce ran its half marathon and 5K yesterday. And it was a beautiful day. I think probably the best attended event in history that is certainly as long as the Chamber has been running that event. Very well attended. I just want to express sincere gratitude to certainly our police force who was out there helping guide the traffic around the runners, to all of the businesses who participated, Chamber member businesses, its sponsors, and all of the neighbors and in the various neighborhoods where the runners come through. Your patience and your acceptance of the mild inconvenience of having several hundred people running through your neighborhood is duly appreciated. We talked about the 4th of July celebration and so many other events that just sort of happen throughout the year, and I think this race is one of those things that sort of adds to the culture that we have here and the flavor of what it is to live in Wilmington. So thank you to everyone who participated in that. I just lastly wanted to express congratulations to our own town manager, Jeff Hull, for running the half marathon in a breakneck pace of whatever he said it was. But I saw him out there running, and he didn't even look tired at the end, so I was duly impressed. Congratulations, Jeff, and thanks for participating.
2 hours, 36 minutes?
No, 1:35.
Oh, geez.
1:30, yeah,
I must
1:35.
listen to something else. Wow.
I don't even like driving 13 miles.
Wow, congrats, guy. Wow.
Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. And I don't have anything as well. So we can move into important dates.
So important dates, the farmer's market is continuing through October 9th, Town Common Parking Lot, 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. October 2nd, Harnden Tavern Open House from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. October 5th is the next brush drop-off at Old Main Street, 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. October 5th is the Candlelight Vigil at the Town Common, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. October 6th, as previously noted, Reading Municipal Light Department Open House, 2 p.m. to 5 p.m. October 8th, the Tony A. 5K Road Race / Walk begins at the Town Common, 7:30 a.m. is the registration. October 8th is another brush drop-off, Old Main Street, 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. October 10th, just as a reminder, town offices are closed because it's a Columbus Day. October 11th is the next Board of Selectmen's meeting here in room 9, 7 p.m. October 12th, another brush drop-off, Old Main Street, 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. October 15th, brush drop-off, Old Main Street, 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. October 20th is the next Facilities Master Plan Committee meeting. It'll be at the high school in the media room at 6 p.m. October 21st, Carter Lecture Fund is hosting the Forever Fab group, Wilmington Middle School, 7 p.m. October 24th through November 5th is early voting at the Town Hall. Monday, 8:30 a.m. to 7 p.m., and then Tuesdays through Friday, 8:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. October 24th through November 26th is the curbside collection of yard waste. October 29th, which is a Saturday, is another early voting opportunity here at the Town Hall, 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. October 30th is Harnden Tavern Harvest Festival, 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. Also on October 30th is the Horribles Parade, Rotary Park, 4:30 p.m.
Okay. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion made. Do we have a second? Second. All those in favor? Unanimous. Good night. Thank you.